Welcome. My name is John Baker, and I'm an evaluation consultant in the School of Arts and Sciences at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm here to describe the work of myself and a colleague, Dan Miller-Yuta, who's the Associate Director for Education and Outreach in the School of Engineering at the same university. The plan is to describe 5 years of work in about 5 minutes, so we'll see how I do. The topic is looking at the work that went into and the lessons learned in developing a tool to capture collective impact of our community engagement and outreach programs at our university. Let's start 5 years ago. Penn is decentralized much like other universities in lots of different ways, including, and not surprisingly, how data is collected and used by community engagement programs. We've listed some of the issues related to this decentralization below, including how each program develops their own tools for data collection, that there are differences in the types of data collected and how that data is operationalized. There are issues in combining or comparing data across programs, and this ultimately leads to difficulty in reporting information to key stakeholders. The purpose of the Penn Community Engagement Database Project is to develop a tool to capture the longitudinal impacts of our community engagement and outreach programs across the university. The purposes here relate directly to the problem space on the previous slide. In particular, the project aims to standardize data collection, reduce administrative burden, and easily provide reports of outreach activities. In addition, the database can be used for recruitment for future programs. The first 2 years of the project involved raising money equally across 2 schools, developing a concept paper with the support of an advisory group, and putting together a security protocol that was built from scratch. We then spent the next year working with Yellow Brick Systems to develop a custom user interface for our database, which is on the Salesforce CRM platform. It is worth noting that we learned about this developer and chose Salesforce through a presentation at a previous NABRE conference concerning the Pathways to Science program at Yale. Hearing about it got us excited. The tool seemed so attainable. We had not imagined it would take so long to get things up and running. Each step is iterative, and as things change, we needed to revisit completed tasks. For instance, the concept paper and security protocol needed to be revised after the database structure was finalized and certain design requests were not feasible or cost-effective. In another situation, while we raised sufficient money at the start, some fell through right before we started the build-out with the developer, and we needed to renegotiate funding. After everything was complete, it was another year of back and forth before the Privacy Office approved our final materials. In total, a usable database took over 4 years to produce. This past summer, we're finally able to start using the database. Summer is when the plurality of outreach programs occur on campus. We use this as a pilot for how to implement the database. This included recruiting programs in our respective schools to utilize the tool, learning how to and how not to get parental consent for student data, trying out the different data entry tools that we had planned to use, and trying out the various reporting out tools available in Salesforce. We had some major issues with non-consent. Many of the participants in the program were youth, and so parental consent was needed, which can be its own issue. In some cases, consent was requested after a program completed, and we had poor response rates. This then created an issue with anonymous data, and we needed to make decisions about how to include information about participants who did not want to be identified. Relatedly, we have one-off programs where a school group comes to a campus event. Participants are typically anonymous here as well, and a protocol for handling this type of data needed to be developed. Lastly, when reporting out about community engagement efforts, we found that we needed to be able to differentiate between the participants who pay to participate and those who do not. As a result, we needed to make a slight alteration to our database structure to account for this. Our next steps include changing how we collect consent and demographic data to make this part of the acceptance paperwork into a program. We'd also like to increase our coverage within our given schools before expanding to additional schools at the university. This step will likely require some advocacy at the provost level. Finally, while we have piloted data entry at the time of the program, we have not tried one of the key features of the Penn Community Engagement Database, a mechanism for collecting data from past participants in the future. When we talk about collective impact, we need to gather long-term outcome data, and the database should enable us to do so. Finally, we end with lessons learned. Please take some time to read through the suggestions on this page, and we look forward to talking more about this during the breakout sessions. If you have any questions, you can reach us by our email addresses, which can be found on the first page of this presentation. Thanks.